Welcome to the JB Media Institute Digital Drop-In. This is Sarah Benoit, lead instructor, and I'm excited today to be joined by Justin in just a little while to talk about specifics related to nonprofit and community organizational marketing. So for those of you who don't know me well, essentially I've been in Asheville for 20 years, and I've spent a lot of time working with nonprofits around different causes and issues and different goals. So today what I really want to highlight are the tools, the tactics, the strategies, and the things that I think nonprofit organizations can benefit from the most. So as I said earlier, you are on mute if you're listening to this webinar, but if you have questions as we go along, please use the chat or the Q&A feature on Zoom, and I'm glad to answer any questions that come up as we go along. Also, for everyone attending today, we will provide a recording of this webinar along with a copy of all the slides that you see. So you will be able to go back, click on the links, investigate what I recommend further. And again, we're so glad to have you. So thank you for joining us today. So according to HubSpot, which if you're not familiar with HubSpot, they are a really great company that provides software for marketing, but they also have a number of educational outlets. So they not only provide digital marketing education and classes, trainings, webinars, and tools, but they also supply a lot of great opportunities for nonprofits. They define nonprofit marketing as the use of marketing tactics and strategies to amplify an organization's cause and mission, solicit donations, and attract volunteers and supporters. So this is why I felt it was important for us to spend at least one webinar talking about the unique challenges and the unique opportunities that nonprofits have, since I do think it's a little bit different than the for-profit sector. So there's really 5 main goals in the years that I've worked with nonprofits or just community organizations in general that they are trying to achieve. The first is they want to increase awareness. So they want more people to know about their brand, their programs, their services, and how they're serving their community locally, nationally, or internationally. The second is they want to raise funding. So especially in a state like North Carolina, we see that a lot of nonprofits have had funding cut over the last few years. And so relying on private donations, individual donations, has become even more of an important part of how organizations are being run. So that's a big one that I think we talk about pretty frequently. 3, they want to inspire action. So many nonprofits and community organizations don't just want you to write a check or donate, but they want you to show up at events. They want you to volunteer for different things. They want you to tell your friends about the work that they're doing. They want you to somehow engage and become a part of the movement they're creating or the tribe they're creating around a certain cause or issue. So inspiring action is a big part of nonprofit marketing. Recruiting volunteers, which I think is a subset of that inspired action, is also a really big piece. So I know I work with an environmental nonprofit right now, and one of the biggest things that we need are volunteers to canvass around different issues, to attend different events, and collect signatures for our petitions and so forth. So getting people that are willing to be that boots on the ground sort of part of our organization is really important, and we use a lot of marketing and promotional tactics to invite people to be a part of that work. And then finally, a lot of nonprofits and community organizations actually want to provide services, programs, or products for the people that they serve. So they need to be communicating about what those programs and services are. So essentially, a lot of nonprofit marketing can be split between trying to communicate with the donors and connect with the people that are the supporters financially of your organization and also are willing to donate their time, as well as marketing and promoting to the people that actually need what you're offering. So the people that you serve are also part of your audiences in a lot of ways. So there's three main things that, in my experience, are creating really great results for nonprofits right now. The first one is partnership marketing. And Justin Belleme, who is co-founder of the Institute, he will be joining us just momentarily, but this is one of his specialties. And we've done a few different webinars and events around this topic in particular. But I feel nonprofits and community organizations already understand the power of this collaborative kind of approach to marketing and communications. So we're living in a world where I think a lot of smaller organizations or medium-sized organizations, especially working with limited budgets, when they come together to create an impact, they're actually able to combine resources and reach more people through partnership strategies. So there's a few things that I've seen working really well that I think everyone should consider. One is really thinking about your sponsorships and how those sponsorships play into your exposure online. So if you have for-profit organizations that are coming in to help you with an event, to support a program, they're a regular donor, figure out how you can meet them online, how you can engage with them online and have conversations that are really relevant to the work that you do and to the communities that you serve. The second type of partnership I think is really valuable is the media partnership. And sometimes media can step in as a sponsor, but I also think in a lot of ways organizations have opportunities to create connections with reporters and journalists and bloggers and influencers. So especially when you can find someone in the media or online that has a great following that is really committed and passionate about the kind of work that you do, that media person, that personality, that influencer can have a lot of power in helping you get a message out and helping sort of represent you out online and driving people back to your social media, your website, your information. So thinking of the media sort of beyond just the public relations perspective and how can you pitch them, but how can you have connections with the right people that are influencing what people pay attention to? How can you connect with them on a more long-term basis? Thought leadership is another piece of partnership marketing that I think is really valuable. And this comes from working with a lot of nonprofits where they have board members or an executive director that have a lot of knowledge and a lot of background in the work that they do. So a good example would be that I work with a nonprofit called Community Roots, which is an environmental nonprofit. They're based here in Asheville, but their executive director, Kat Houghton, has traveled all over the world talking to different people and working in sort of the field in which their nonprofit operates. So she has, been leading kind of an initiative here in North Carolina around things like the rights of nature or things like ending the Duke monopoly on energy and things like that. So that's their core issues that they talk about. But one of the great things about her is that she learned about those things by traveling to other places and really becoming a part of other movements. So she was involved in Standing Rock. She has been to South America to learn more about rights of nature and how that's being done in other countries. She has traveled around the United States to connect with people that are looking at energy independence and how we can have more access to solar and wind power and things like that. So her thought leadership as part of their organization is really valuable, and it creates a lot of opportunities to partner with other organizations, with other companies. So being a part of events and speaking is something that she does pretty regularly. Putting together content that she can share with other organizations that are really aligned with the work that Community Roots does is really valuable. She's even really used a lot of her thought leadership kind of influence to position herself to get more grants and more attention from the media so that she, elevates the organization as a whole. So if you have someone on your team that has a certain level of expertise or background, or they've been working in a particular field or industry for a long time, there's a lot to think about when it comes to capitalizing on that and sharing it out in the world, not just directly to the people that already know about your organization, but through other organizations, through other people, through other media. Events is another great way to partner. So coming together to create an event that really gives you an opportunity to do public relations and maybe boost some social media ads and get a lot of people to show up and connect in to the mission and the vision of what you're doing can be really valuable. And then, of course, just community connections in general are going to be a way that you can partner. So figuring out whether you're local, regional, national, or international, figuring out how the people that you already know, the people who already maybe donate or volunteer, how can you activate them in a deeper way to get out there and support you online, talk about you online, share different pieces of information. And there's lots of ways that this actually plays out tangibly. So one is making sure that when you're on social media, if you have partners that you're working to connect with and build relationships with, make sure that you're tagging them using the @ symbol. Make sure that if you're on Twitter and Instagram that you know what hashtags they use, that you are using hashtags that are relevant, and really engage in the conversations that already exist, especially. Consider doing co-op advertising. So that's something that was really big with print ads and now can also be done in a wide variety of ways, especially through social media advertising. So figuring out ways that you can pool your resources and advertise in a way that really represents not just your organization, but maybe some of the sponsors, some of the supporters, some of the partners that you have. Email marketing can also be something that you can do in a partnership way. So featuring each other in each other's e-newsletters, supporting each other by sharing each other's events to your network and your supporters can be really valuable. And then even providing content for each other's websites. So really when you come together with another organization or company, how can you utilize all these different channels? Where are you, able to meet in the same channel and really initiate a conversation that hopefully gets people excited? The next thing that I think nonprofits need to really be focusing their energy on is email marketing. So I know there's a lot of arguments for how email marketing is dead. I really don't believe that. We've done a couple digital drop-ins around email marketing and the value of it. So I think one of the biggest things nonprofits need to remember is that when somebody gives you an email and asks you to communicate with them more specifically, that's a huge opportunity and a deeper relationship than sometimes what you can expect on social media or other types of advertising channels. So there's a few tips I'll give you for email marketing that I think nonprofits can really benefit from. One, really send clear, consistent, honest, and transparent emails about all the things that you need. So I think sometimes we want to avoid being too salesy, we want to avoid being too pushy, but I think with email, when someone has signed up for your list or they've connected with you and asked you for more information, you can be really clear, direct, and simple about what it is that you want them to do to support your work and your vision and your mission. So don't feel like you have to cover that stuff up. People like it when it's really easy for them to take action. So make those actions really simple. Say exactly what you need. Talk about how it is that they can really help you move your organization or your work or your mission to the next level. 2, design templates for conversion. So sometimes when we're sending email newsletters, we put lots of stuff into one newsletter. And I want to encourage nonprofits to think about having more frequent newsletters that are more segmented so that the actual newsletter itself is really geared towards converting people into one thing. So this is, I think most obvious when it comes to my third point, which is separate fundraising email campaigns from other email campaigns. So when you're in a fundraising period and you're using email, I think it's incredibly important to have singular kind of email campaigns that are focused on getting those donations, getting people to actually click that donate button and do something. So that means if you want to have a really strong conversion, your fundraising campaign may be separate from your regular e-newsletter. And that fundraising campaign might be a really simple template with a great video pitch and then a button that allows them to take action and donate. So think about how you can better segment your groups of people, organize them so that you know why they've connected to you in a little more detail, and I think the easiest way to think about this is, for example, I'm working with a nonprofit right now, and when people sign up for the newsletter, we're really trying to separate out people who are long-term donors versus people who are brand new. And the people who are brand new are going into sort of an automated campaign to try to really figure out how they can plug in. So that goes to my fourth point, which is use email automation and create compelling content sequences. Especially for people that are new to the organization, it really makes sense to get them to sign up and then have a series of emails over, let's say, a few weeks that really helps them understand how they can best take action to support you. And it'll maybe even give them a few different ways that they can take action, which I think is valuable. So if you're doing email marketing and you're just sending an e-newsletter, think about how you can maybe take some more unique approaches rather than just sending something once a month or twice a month. Really think about how you can campaign directly to the supporters that you have on email and help them understand how they can help you. The other thing that I think is really unique that a lot of nonprofits need to start thinking more about is video marketing. So of course, most of you already know video marketing is super hot. It's something that's been really pushed over the last 5 years from a lot of different angles. You can use it in social media, in email, in blog posts, on your website, or even use video when you're making one-to-one outreach to people through email. So even when I'm actually just engaging individually, as someone who wants to talk to someone about becoming involved in our organization, especially if it's through sponsorship or something of that nature, I can use video and send them something that's easier to digest than reading a really long email with all the details. So even though those details may be important, I might want to have a little video they can watch as I kind of pitch them, where they can get to know me, they can really see how I feel about the work that we do, and they can connect more deeply in. And across the board, we see that video actually increases engagement, so it's really valuable to think about how it plays into the different channels that you see. It's going to allow you to communicate faster, emotionally connect in a deeper way. It's going to inspire more action just because it's more digestible. Video can be used to both educate and entertain people, and a lot of that video content is going to become more shareable. And if you're creating videos on a regular basis for your blog or for social media, one of the things that I want to suggest you think about is creating a great YouTube channel if you don't already have one, and making sure that you repurpose a lot of your video content into that YouTube channel, because that YouTube channel can actually become a really big way that you're able to gain exposure in both Google and YouTube. And again, if it's content that's really educating people, helping them to understand what you do more, think about the kind of questions people ask, the things that they don't understand about the work that they do, the testimonials that you may be able to have, and how valuable those are to have them all easily available in one place so they can be shared in almost any circumstance. And you'll see I've included some examples of different ways that people are using video on their websites, and I wanted to give you those so you could just get an example of videos that I think are pretty compelling, or even videos that have no audio, but the visual is making a completely different impact. So now, before we get into Justin's topic, I want to talk a little bit about fundraising and give you some basic kind of things that I think are really important right now for fundraising. Sort of tactics or approaches that I think we really have to be digging into more as nonprofit and community organizations. So the first one is personal fundraising is having a big impact on the nonprofit world. So essentially, individual people asking the people that they know and care about to donate to something tends to have a much higher conversion rate than just promoting a fundraiser out to the general public. So essentially, CauseVox reports that 1 in 4 solicitation emails from peer-to-peer fundraisers result in donations, compared to 1 in 1,250 emails from a nonprofit. So when you can activate your network to specifically go out and ask people to participate in the fundraiser and support something they care about, we see this massive shift in the conversion rates. So there's a few ways that this is happening online, which I'm sure you're aware of. One is individual supporters create their own websites or pages where they can share that, and then people can come to their page and make a donation. There's lots of different tools and systems and software out there for doing that, but it can have a huge impact, especially if you have a core group of supporters or donors that are really passionate about what you're doing. Another place that I'm having a lot of good results this year is in the personal Facebook fundraising. So on Facebook as an individual user, I can create a fundraiser for my birthday or for any other reason, and I can really invite my friends on Facebook to donate to something on my behalf. And at least with one of the nonprofits I'm working with this year, we have seen a huge amount of success with this. So sometimes we're bringing in an extra $500 or $1,000 a month because we have key people on our board or on our volunteer staff or on our leadership team that are doing a Facebook fundraiser. And the more that we connect with people and we get people excited about the work that we do, the more likely those people are to contribute. So that's just another way you can think about activating your network. And then, of course, with event participation, I think it's a great idea to figure out how you can get individual people to stand up for your event, to share it, to invite people that they know, whether that's online or in person. So think about your fundraising efforts and how you are really activating individuals to make an impact. Also, one of the things that I've been testing over the last year that has worked really well, and I've included a case study from Wabash College, but essentially is thinking about having fundraisers that run as one day or have a timed kind of set period that they're running. So this allows you to use social media and email to really push out announcements, to find large donors that may match any donations you receive over a certain period of time. It's really important, I think, to plan ahead and get your past donors to really know in advance that you're going to be doing this day and ask them to donate on that day, ask them to tell their friends, do that personal piece we just talked about, but do it, in this specific time period that you want to reach a particular goal. You can boost social media posts during those time frames and really kind of announce to your own followers and your own fans, but also to people in your community that you want to let know that you're doing this sort of timed piece with a really solid financial goal at the end. And then again, you can host events or have a big event. So I've seen situations where we're having individual people host smaller events at their homes on the day that we're doing all of our fundraising. I've also seen bigger events where a whole week of fundraising ends in one sort of big celebration. So take a look at the case study that I'm sharing here. I thought it was interesting that they did really spontaneous kind of approach and really didn't let anybody know that they were going to do this major fundraiser until the day before. But it created a huge amount of urgency and buzz, and they raised, I think, over $400,000. So just think about how you can utilize that strategy. And then if you're not doing recurring giving, this is something I really want to suggest everybody set up. I know a lot of nonprofits are already using some type of donation platform, and a lot of the platforms out there actually already have recurring giving built into the system. The biggest reason I think this is valuable is because we really have seen that younger donors are more prone to giving small amounts of money over longer periods of time rather than one big donation. So if you're looking at engaging the millennial audience, the Gen Z audience, people who are, let's say, under 40, we definitely see that those markets are responding better to the recurring giving idea. You want to make sure whatever system you're using, it's very easy for people to start their recurring giving and then end it whenever they want to. So make sure it's using something that, test the platform, make sure that the payment gateway works, make sure that it's a seamless process for them to put in their information and become a recurring giver. And then, like I said, make sure it's very clear to them how they can turn that off in the future if they want or need to. And also with recurring giving, make sure you have some type of communication plan for those people. So people who donate to you on a regular basis, one of the things that can get them really excited is for you to really share with them the progress, the success, the challenges that you're having, and let them know on a regular basis how that what they do makes it possible for you to do what you do. So think about that. And like I said, if you look at Network for Good's recent study, donors who set up a recurring gift give an average of 42% more per year than those who gave a one-time gift. And donors were 31% more likely to set up a recurring gift if where you sent them was a branded donation page that was really easy to use and really visually engaging. So think about, again, how you can create that. So we're going to switch over and bring Justin on to talk about Google Grants, but I want to just invite anybody, if you have any questions about what I've shared, please let us know. And again, you'll get a copy of these slides so that you can definitely go back, click on some of those links that I've shared, learn more about how to put these strategies together yourself. And of course, my contact information is there. So if you have any questions about these things, once you get a copy of these slides, you can feel free to reach out to me with any questions. But I'm going to pass the computer over to Justin, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the Google Ad Grants program.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. And great job on the first half of the presentation. So Google Grants, this is a offering that Google has provided for a long time. They've made some changes to it over the years. We have been privy to those changes as we've been providing Google Grant support at JB Media since near the beginning of the company, which was 2011. Just a little bit of background about the Google Grant. In its current format, the Google Grant is $10,000 per month in free Google text ads. Let me break that down a little bit further. It only offers the text search ad option. So you can't do banner ads, you can't do ads on the third-party network, which is other websites that can show text ads. It's only in the search results, the text format of advertising that Google offers in Google AdWords, and $10,000 per month breaks down actually to a daily budget of around $330 per day. So it's a little bit more in months that have 31 days, a little bit less in shorter months in February. But it's really more or less a $330 daily budget to run Google Ads for your nonprofit. It can only be used for keywords related to your mission and your work in the community that you serve. And this is a little bit of a gray area. They have redefined what the rules are. There was a big change in the rules early last year that redefined what it means for a keyword to be within this part of the rule. So I can talk more about that in a minute, but some of the things that they have changed over the years is you used to be able to just dump lots of different broad keywords into your Google Grant campaign, see what kind of traffic you got, hopefully capture some people interested in what your organization's doing. They've made it more restrictive. They've made it they have more scrutiny on these Google Grants. I personally think, and our team thinks, that they're actually in some ways trying to increase the accountability and the professionalism of the Google Grant program, but it's also they want it to be accurately describing what organizations do. They also are trying to really clearly define that you can't compete with for-profits. So if your organization is all about educating people about an issue, any kind of educational topic, you should be able to use the Google Grant to run keywords about the educational topics your organization is trying to educate people on, drive them to content about that. So for example, we have a client that is all about the history and heritage of the Cherokee tribe. It's for the museum and for their performing arts nonprofit. We can attract people looking for things to do in Cherokee, which is slightly commercial, but it's not a specific, there's not a specific business that might have that exact solution. So we can drive tourism traffic. We can also drive historical interest traffic, such as people looking for information about the Trail of Tears, which they have exhibits, guided experiences about that historical event in Cherokee you can experience, but that we can also drive online learning about the topic onto their website. So that's one of the aspects of it. As I just mentioned, you can't compete with commercial keywords. What I mean by this is, for example, if you are a nonprofit childcare facility or a nonprofit fitness facility like a YWCA, it's getting increasingly difficult to market those services where there are businesses down the street that are for-profits that may be running Google ads on the same keywords. They're getting better at differentiating and scrutinizing and shutting down those kind of campaigns. And if you're a nonprofit, if that's all that you do, if you are a nonprofit retreat center that does hospitality, overnight stays and events and weddings, we found in some cases that those organizations can't even get through the system, can't even get approved for the Google grant, whereas technically they should, by the broadest restrictions on what types can and can't get in. You should be able to get in as a wellness nonprofit, but we found at least 2 cases where they were rejected and we ultimately gave up. But most of the time we've been successful with museums, with mental health nonprofits, with health education organizations, with historical, different types of historical businesses where their mission is to preserve a tradition, the content of a community or a culture. We can use the Google grants very successfully to drive lots of traffic on people looking to learn more and eventually potentially buy tickets to an event, a performance, a museum, things of that nature. Also for mental health, we have a mental health nonprofit that we've worked with over the years that provides a special mental health directory of therapists who offer discounted services to people who don't have insurance. We've been able to successfully drive traffic for them. It's a little bit of a gray area because they are competing with therapists that are offering full price services. So I actually haven't talked to them recently if the new rules have affected them very much. So as I've been sort of alluding to, this is best for driving educational traffic, or in rare cases when people are looking to donate for a specific cause or a specific issue, whether it's I'd like to donate for the Red Cross, or I'd like to donate for a certain natural disaster. You can target those keywords if you're an organization accepting donations about a specific issue, a specific national issue, local issue, current event related issue. But historically, people don't spend a lot of time going out and searching for where they can donate. They might go and search for validation that a certain organization is reputable, or in basis of major natural disasters, they might look at where they can give, and they'll be competing with other organizations that are taking donations for those types of things. But generally, it's better for teaching people about a topic. If that's your organization's mission, if you're the Asheville Art Museum, then your mission is to educate people about certain artists, certain types of art, Appalachian art, Blue Ridge art, Asheville, artists. Those kind of keywords can drive traffic, as well as really general keywords about people looking for things to do when they visit Asheville. You should be able to target those type of keywords as well with the Google grant, and hopefully build a campaign that has enough different keywords, enough different campaigns to utilize the majority or all of that $330 daily budget, which is just extra traffic, which ultimately, other than the management of it, is free. No, you don't pay anything for it. It's a nonprofit service that Google provides. And it's also a great supplement to what we consider SEO or content marketing. If you're building content about a topic and hoping to show up in the search engines, if it's educational related, you can also run Google grants for those same keywords you're trying to target with SEO and get extra traffic, or maybe start getting some traffic prior to your organic SEO strategy actually taking full effect and having an impact. So you can also use it to test, to see how people are looking for different things, because you get data about how people search for the keywords you're targeting, even if they don't click on your ad. So it can help you with some market research and some strategy, as well as driving traffic to your content that you're building on your website. That's going to be blog posts, articles, guides, resources, things you're creating for people to download, which can help build your email list, which can help build just traffic to your site overall. One of our most successful clients for this is the Blue Ridge Heritage Area, a regional federal designated heritage region of Western North Carolina, 26 counties, I believe. They do a lot of things with art, music, craft, the Cherokee history, and a few other things. And we have multiple campaigns utilizing almost the entire budget. Certain times of year, it utilizes the entire budget. People trying to find the Blue Ridge Park, things to do on the Blue Ridge Parkway, things, certain types of music that they support, cultural heritage of music, like old time music and bluegrass and others. So we can drive traffic to those pages, and then people can learn about where that music originated and learn that you can come experience an itinerary where you can experience those historical facilities, venues, artists themselves, musicians, educational experiences in that area. So that's an example of how to really utilize it to its fullest extent. And one thing that we do as an agency is help nonprofits understand if it's a right fit, go through the process of applying, which is actually relatively simple. But we have a template of just going through the application really quickly, because we've done it so many times. And then once approved, setting it up, doing the strategic research and processes of getting it built out. And you can do that yourself, but what we're learning through the changes that happened last year is that it takes pretty much a professional level of experience with Google Ads to comply with the newest rules. So you need someone, whether it's internal to your team, freelancer, or an agency, who knows not only Google Ads, but the differences between the ads and the grant itself. So in the best case scenario, it can drive as many as 10,000 free visitors to your website a month, which for a lot of nonprofits might be way more than you're getting now total. In some cases, it's just a fraction. For Blue Ridge Heritage area, I think they get as much as 25 to 30% certain times of the year of their traffic from the Google grant, which is significant. Without the grant, they would be getting that much less traffic. It's not really competing very much with their organic results. It's things they don't show up, mostly things they don't show up at all for or off the first page of in Google. So I've been alluding to a lot of the changes, but some of them are specifically technically, you have to maintain a 5% click-through rate, which is abbreviated CTR, on your ads, which basically means you have to write really good ad copy and make sure that the ad copy relates to the keywords that those ads are showing up for within your campaign. So that requires a professionally appropriate campaign architecture where you have the right number of campaigns, ad groups, and ads associated with the appropriate keyword groups. So if your ad just says the name of your organization and what you do, and you're running it for a very specific keyword, and you don't just talk about how you have content about that topic on your ad, your click-through rate will probably not be 5% because people will ignore the ad. So this is helping them kind of weed out people who weren't creating strategic types of campaigns where you had all the keywords related to one topic with ads only on that topic in one place inside the campaign, where there's a good quality score, good relevancy score, and that drives a high click-through rate. Google wants their users to have a good user experience, and they don't want ads to show up that aren't getting clicks. It just takes up real estate that they could give or sell to someone else. You must maintain a keyword quality score of 3 or higher out of 10 for every keyword in your campaign. So organizations that used to dump hundreds or thousands of keywords in have been weeded out because some of those keywords would have a quality score of 0 or 1 or 2, and you can go back and remove those. There is a place inside Google AdWords where you can sort your keywords by quality score. One of the things that's tough, if you have some keywords that almost never get searched, they'll have a blank in the keyword score, but then if that starts getting searched and they determine algorithmically that your score is below 3, your campaign will get paused or disabled at least temporarily, and you have to go through the process of asking them to re-review it. We've seen that happen at least 5 or 6 times in the last 2 years within our clientele, with the Google Grant clients. What the quality score is basically a metric that Google uses to determine if the keyword is relevant, if the keyword's appropriate for the page that it's linking to. So example of that, if you just had a keyword Asheville charities or Asheville nonprofits and it went to your homepage, that might be relevant, although someone's looking for a list of them, finding one individual organization might not be what they were looking for. They might go back, do a different search, or find a different result. And if people click through and then immediately bounce back, that is part of indicating a low quality of match between what they were looking for and what they found. And they also do a test to see if the word you're advertising appears in the page. If it appears exactly and it's the main focus of the page, you're going to have a quality score of 8 or 9 or 10. If you have some similar words or synonyms, it might be 4 or 5. And if it's completely irrelevant, not related at all, you might get a 0 or 1, and that will disable your campaign. Sarah, I want to make sure that I'm not missing questions that are coming through. I think I saw something pop up before I move on.
It looks like we're good.
Okay.
You could give us a little number if we had questions.
Great.
But again, feel free to share your questions in the chat or in the Q&A if you have them.
Great, thanks, Sarah. I saw something pop up. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So, limitations. This is a pretty short list. This is organizations that would be immediately disqualified. You can't even apply if you fall into one of these categories. One is schools, specifically institutions that charge people to come and have some sort of experiential education. So it's mostly private schools and colleges. We have one client that was, when they filed their 501c3, they filed as a educational institution, even though they were really more of a wellness kind of hospitality business. But because they were that designation in the federal directory of 501c3s, they were rejected by the Google grant when we tried to apply for them. And we were surprised because we didn't realize they had filed through that, their paperwork had that information on it. The other is healthcare organizations, and this is nonprofit hospitals, health facilities, clinics, places of service delivery. If a hospital has a foundation, or if an organization is in the mission of educating people about a health issue or community health advocacy, they should be able to get through. But if they are a hospital, clinic, wellness center, they're going to run into this problem and they're not going to make it through. Now, again, we've seen a few summer camps and retreat centers get rejected because the primary service they're providing was directly competing with for-profit businesses, and they didn't really have much going on in their mission of education or just general charitable activity that was clear enough to differentiate them from for-profit businesses. And that's the last bullet I just mentioned that sort of qualifies those organizations that we have seen that were not approved over the last 2 years. So it's really good for the following types, which I've already mostly mentioned, but I'm just going to repeat it. Advocacy organizations educating people about topics, health, environment are examples. Cultural organizations, historical groups, museums, tourism. The Blue Ridge National Heritage Area is the one I mentioned before. They are a perfect example. There are, I think, 25 or 26 other federally designated regional heritage areas. There are other types of federal designations that can operate as 501c3s, even though they get federal funding to preserve some sort of regional heritage or regional recreational experiences. And then other educational organizations that are not actually schools. So online education, especially if it's providing primarily free resources, or organizations that are trying to move the needle on a certain topic that they've created a nonprofit to move that forward, they should be able to utilize the Google grant to drive awareness of what they're doing, especially for people who are looking for the topics that they're covering. And I already mentioned this, but the new rules make it harder for non-professionals to keep a grant account in compliance while also maximizing traffic. Another reason why this is the case is so for many years, part of the restriction of the Google grant was that you could not bid more than $2 for a click. Meaning that if the full first page of a search result was mostly businesses paying $4, $5, $6, $7, $10, $12, $15 for one click, Google grant would never show up for that keyword. In last year, they removed that cap. If you can, and allowed nonprofits to run certain type of ads at a higher cost per click. Those are ads that are called optimized for conversion, meaning you have to have a actual conversion on your website that's tracked, and Google has to see that people from the ad are actually following through and completing something. Usually it's downloading a document, filling out a contact form, signing up to become a volunteer, donating. joining the mailing list, joining the email list. Those are considered conversions. It takes a little bit more understanding of website development, tracking and reporting, Google Analytics, integrating that with Google Ads to get that set up correctly, and then to write ads and campaigns that drive people to take that action so that those kind of campaigns can be turned on. You have to hit a certain threshold of conversion before you can activate them and lift that cap, which helps organizations that are in more high, when they're educating about topics that are also commercial in nature. So that can be an interesting opportunity and also a challenge that we're seeing with our clients. And there are agencies and freelancers who specialize in Google grants. And anyone who's proficient in Google Ads can learn by reading a couple of articles and practicing a little bit, can learn the differences enough to be able to manage it. But I feel like if someone's brand new to Google Ads in the first place, that the ad grant can be an extra layer of complexity and challenge that can make it hard to see results. Therefore, we see a lot of Google grants that are floundering with very low traffic, where they may only be getting, a couple dollars a day of use out of the 330, and then they determine that it's not going to work for them. But we've seen in some cases that completely re-engineering and professionally strategizing a campaign can show a big return when it's professionally managed. Of course, that costs resources. I would say on the low end, a couple $100 a month. On the high end, $1,000 a month. This should be the range of what specialists charge. And a nonprofit with a balanced budget would have to justify that investment by feeling confident that the extra traffic would turn into a good use of the resources to hire someone to manage it. So we have tourism organizations that are nonprofits that see that as a good investment, and other nonprofits that find it to be hard to justify. So it's a case-by-case basis whether or not it's worth it to outsource it, whether it makes sense to try to do it in-house, or whether it even makes sense at all for the organization to try to use the Google grant. So here's a couple of examples. This organization had a Google grant that had gone dormant, and we took over about a year ago, and we've generated a lot of clicks and 900 conversions in the last 5 months of managing their Google ad grant. This organization is in the business for good networking kind of certification industry. So they're running keywords about like benefit corporation and conscious capitalism and things of that nature, where they're providing assessments, resources, guides, tools, and a professional organization you can join if you're that type of business. And so they're membership driven and services driven. They have some services and events as well. So they have a way to generate revenue from businesses that are interested in those things once they learn about them, and they're using the grant to be in front of more people, basically for Google search, getting more traffic and converting them to those other types of membership or paid engagement with them that would justify the cost of the grant, of managing the grant that we're doing for them. Here's a little bit of data from, this is the mental health organization. And this actually is a little bit misleading because we worked for them during a time a few years ago. You can see on the graph, it's been 4 years ago now, but they were able to go to what we call the Google Grant Pro, which was a thing it took rigorous reporting and success of maximizing the use of the basic Google grant in order to apply for the Grant Pro, which was $40,000 per month in Google Ads. They were actually able to get 40,000 and get up to 5,000 visitors a week, which is basically maxing the grant out $2 per click over the course of each week. And they were able to turn that into a lot of memberships, a lot of online training programs, sales, and it was really driving like 70 to 80% of their revenue as a nonprofit with about a $200,000 annual budget, or a little bit more than that. And the Google Grant Pro is something that they've had become available, go offline, become available and go offline a few different times over the last 10 years. And right now it's shut down, and there's a lot of indication that it may never come back. So I think they're grandfathering in organizations that were already in that program, but not allowing more to get in. But this is an example of how you really can get a lot of traffic from a Google grant if it's optimized correctly. This is also an organization that had thought that they would never get past 5,000 or 6,000 a month until we took it over, and they had a professional doing it for 6 months and couldn't get it past the $5,000 threshold or 6,000, and I was able to go from 5,000 to the full 10,000 within a few weeks of taking it over, and then to the threshold of the Google Grant Pro, which was basically hitting full budget every day for 6 months straight was the requirement, which took a lot of strategic. Just hitting it for 1 month is one thing, but hitting it every day for 6 months takes a ton of effort. So I think we have a question. This is also my last slide, I think, before the Q&A. So good timing.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Patrick, which is, well, we'll go ahead and address it, Patrick, since we haven't had too many. But do y'all post the slides with audio to your YouTube channel? There's been a lot of good elaboration I'd like to share. So typically, no, actually, we send the slides over to just the people who attended, and we post the recording onto YouTube for free. But everyone who's attended today will get a copy of the slides and the recording, and you can feel free to share.
Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate the feedback.
And we've got a few things in the chat, so let's pull that up. So you mentioned nonprofits were not eligible for Google Ad Grants if they offer health services. Would our voice be excluded from Google Ad Grants since they provide a single health service to clients?
I'm not 100% sure. I think that you actually are I would be relatively confident that our voice would be eligible, because you're not operating a clinic where people come and pay for services. I think most of your like counseling services are provided for free, if I understand correctly, and other things like that. So I would say 80 to 90% confident that your categorization of type of organization would be eligible, and it wouldn't take very long. And I almost feel like I remember we previously trained one of your staff years ago, and I'm sure we recommend the Google Grant. I'm pretty sure you may already have one. That's one other thing to look at is you may already have one in your organization's name, and it takes a little bit of work to determine that and regain access if it's been abandoned. If it's been abandoned, it's certainly turned off and deactivated. And we did this for several of our clients in the last year, was help them uncover how to reclaim it. But at the very least, I would say go ahead and try to apply, see if you get in, and I would be surprised if you didn't.
Great, and so if there's any other questions, please feel free to chat them in or use the Q&A, no problem. I wanted to just let you know at the end of this presentation, which you'll get a copy of, and to Patrick's point, you can feel free to share this anywhere that you'd like to. I've included some resources that I think are really useful for just exploring things that are working for nonprofits, as well as some reviews of fundraising softwares. There's a number of different ones out there. It really depends on your budget, what you're trying to accomplish, which one you would choose. So keep that in mind. And I see we've got another question from Sarah, which is, if you were to suggest the best mix of these tactics by percentage of how to spend your budget, what would you suggest? So I think that question is a little bit hard, Sarah, just because without knowing what the total budget is, I think you have to decide the different tactics based on your total budget. In my mind, if your budget is really small, then you might not be able to work on, let's say, email marketing plus video marketing and social media, because if you've only got a couple people in the organization, they might really struggle and they don't have the budget to kind of support all of that. I think, to me, the basic rule of thumb is figure out where you've already got traction, where things are working. So if you've been, fundraising before, if you've been engaging before, how can we figure out what's working and try to continue that? And then don't spread yourself too thin. But to me, if you have, a decent marketing budget, then I'm really going to look at, again, sort of all the different things that we're doing and set some priorities. For me, those priorities are usually going to be social media and email. And I'm really going to figure out how to incorporate video into a couple of those different things. I'm going to make sure, however, that we're collecting funds, or even making people sign up for volunteers, that it's really seamless. It can be done on phones, that all of that stuff is really straightforward and easy to complete. So I just think there's like some deeper considerations around splitting the budget, because you don't want to dilute your budget so far that everything's only getting a tiny bit of money.
I agree. And also there's a lot of for nonprofits, there's a lot of other considerations. Like, are you trying to reach an audience that's all in the same area? Because then Facebook and Instagram might make a lot of sense. But if you're trying to reach a national audience, then building an email list is probably more effective. Also, can you get grants, or can you get volunteers or in-kind sponsorship to create some of the assets that you need? Grants are helpful for buying equipment. I'm on a board of a nonprofit that's been really successful at getting grants to cover the cost of getting good video equipment, getting good experience, getting good everything they needed to put together their own multimedia, and then they get an intern to do the work.
Yeah. And then I see these other two questions, and let us know, Sarah, if that doesn't completely answer your question. But from Jennifer, would convention and visitors bureaus be eligible for ad grants?
Most likely no. If you're 501c3, yes. If you are 501c6 or other C designation other than 501c3, then my understanding is most CVBs and most chambers are 501c6 organizations, which is basically a membership industry association designation. You get some tax benefits, but it's not the same as a charitable organization, which is in 501c3 category.
Great. So Jennifer, it's about knowing whether or not you're in the 501c3 category. That would give you access. And then Jody, I see your question. Your organization switched to Vimeo 6 years ago or so, and now because of all the staff turnover, there seems to be no way to get back ownership or reclaim the YouTube channel. I think this was the pre-Google integration, and ownership was lost when they integrated with Google Login. And great. I'm so glad the webinar has been helpful. So that's a little bit of a difficult situation, because essentially if you started your YouTube channel before the Google sort of integration, then YouTube had its own username and password. And the only kind of opportunity you have is to figure out what email was associated with that, and then to actually reset the password to that email. So it sounds like that's not, you're welcome, Jennifer. It sounds, Jody, like that's maybe not possible to know what email it was, or to try to use a password reset. Is the channel still up? Because that's an interesting question. If the channel still exists, there may be a way to approach YouTube/Google to ask them to reinstate your access, and I can actually look into that for you if you want. So it's still up there. In some ways that's great, because it means the account still exists somehow, and we may be able to request from them. So if you want to go ahead and email me at sarah@jbmediagroupllc.com, then essentially I can find out for you if there's a way to lobby them to try to get access to that. Because it would be good for you to have access to the YouTube channel, not to just recreate a new one that then competes with the existing one. So feel free to email me, send me that link, and I will shoot you back just some options of how maybe we could tackle that. Google does have a number of ways to try to reclaim things that you've lost access to. And like I said, the only other thing to think about is if you can go back through the organization and try to figure out what email is associated with that account, then that would be really valuable. And then I see we have another question from, let me just get these out of the way. From Patrick, suggestions on generating large donor leads. We do okay with recurring donations and memberships, but we've struggled on that front.
Yeah, just want to call out, we have probably about 2 or 3 more minutes left, because we have another meeting in this room in 5, or in 7 minutes. But to Patrick's question, in my experience with nonprofits, and I don't know exactly the type of organization you're working with, but larger donations usually come through personal relationships. So with one of my former organizations, we used what's called the Benoit fundraising strategy. It's a specific strategy to build towards one annual fundraiser event, kind of showcasing the organization, and you pick table captains to recruit wealthier people to come, and you make a pitch of what the organization would do with the money, and then you kind of get them to commit to a multi-year. I think it's Benevon. You should find it if you search that. Benevon is like a brand of It's a brand of a consulting company that does this model. Is training nonprofits, and they have different levels you can buy into the system they have. But if you watch the Benevon videos on YouTube, you might find enough information to kind of copy some of what they do. Or you can hire them for a small amount of consulting to help understand the model. It was very successful for a theater that I worked with. This other nonprofit that I worked with in Hendersonville, they do it through, they've done a couple of project-based crowdfunding campaigns. Like when they want to do a big project, they do a big campaign around raising the money for that project, and they've gotten a couple of big donations for the project, which then they can cultivate that relationship into getting recurring donations, multi-year pledges from some of their bigger donors. They did a $90,000 crowdfunding campaign about 6 years ago, and included a couple of $5,000 and $10,000 donations, and a few of those turned into annual gifts from those wealthy families. Some of them was just a one-time thing, and some of them it's hard to know which one's going to be which, and we've worked hard to stay in touch with those donors and see if we can get them back. And then that organization is doing national work, and sometimes they get random people coming in and wanting to give $5,000 or $10,000, and that's just the nature of what they're doing. But that type of thing can work too, focusing on a project need, trying to raise money for it, and then trying to get the people who donated the money to give again.
Yeah, I wanted to just throw out and you're sort of already saying this, but I think when it comes to larger donors, one of the key things is to really find and pitch the people that have the most investment in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because that's where I see at least some of the nonprofits that I'm working with. So the one environmental nonprofit I mentioned, we have one large donor that, a couple times a year gives us a pretty large donation. But I think that's because of the relationship he's built, not only with our executive director, but also with our core team leadership. We've gotten to know him very well. And I think he has a deeply passionate kind of connection to the work that we're doing. And so we have really figured out, we have one person on our team that's really focused on the relationship building of those donors and making sure that they get invited to certain things, that they get asked to participate or even speak sometimes with us about different things. And so I think all of that makes them feel more bought in to the organization as a whole. And so you may just sort of evaluate as well how those relationships are being maintained and being grown and things like that. So again, we have to close out for today. No problem, Patrick. So glad you're here. We have to close out for today so that I can give up this room for some other folks. But thank you all so much for being here. I want to just mention that you'll also have some information in these slides about upcoming opportunities to learn with the JB Media Institute. We have a boot camp coming up on August 13th on local SEO. Our next digital drop-in is September 4th. And if you're interested in learning more about content marketing, we do have an awesome on-demand online course that you can check out. And of course, if you'd like to connect more with Justin and I and become part of our peer mentorship and mastermind program, if you're here in Asheville, we meet once a month with other marketing people and really help solve problems and address challenges and figure out how to better strategize. So feel free to reach out to me for any additional information on these programs. But thank you all so much for joining us today, and hopefully we will see you again next month on September 4th.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sarah.